High school was a battleground, with my stutter triggering Karen, the English teacher. The relentless cycle of misunderstandings and punishments reached its peak during an oral presentation. Karen teacher thinks I'm mocking her, but the truth is, I have speech impediment. Here's how it all went down. High school was a mix of possibilities and challenges, but my encounters with Karen, the English teacher, defined my experience. She had this constant battlefield energy, like she was always ready for a fight, and my speech impediment, a stutter I've had since childhood, seemed to trigger her prickly demeanor. It all began on a sunny Tuesday morning. The classroom was bathed in warm sunlight, and I was feeling a bit more confident than usual, hoping for a change. But as I walked into the classroom and said hello to Karen, my stutter decided to make an untimely appearance. Good morning, Mrs. K. Karen, I managed to say. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Karen turned, her eyes narrowing like she just heard the most offensive thing. Are you mocking me? She accused, her voice sharp and cold. I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. No, Mrs. Karen, I have a speech impediment, I stammered, wishing I could just disappear. Her response was swift and merciless. Detention for mocking me and lying about it, she declared, dismissing my explanation as if it were nothing. The following weeks were a relentless cycle of misunderstandings and punishments. Karen seemed to have a radar for my stutter, and every slip-up was met with a harsh reprimand or another detention. It was like she had a personal vendetta against me, and my speech impediment was her ammunition. The peak of this ongoing battle came with the oral presentation assignment. The thought of speaking in front of the class was daunting enough, but with Karen's critical eyes on me, it felt like walking into a lion's den. As I stood there, my hands trembling and my heart racing, I began my presentation on Shakespeare. Today, I will talk about Shakespeare's influence on modern literature, I started, trying to keep my voice steady, but Karen wouldn't have it. Stop mocking the great playwright with your stuttering. Do you think this is funny? She interrupted, her voice laced with accusation. The class was silent, but their eyes were filled with a mix of sympathy and discomfort. I tried to explain again. It's my speech impediment, but Karen was unyielding. Enough! Detention for a week, and I'm calling your parents, she announced, her decision final and uncompromising. The detentions became a regular part of my routine, and my parents' meeting with Karen did little to change her perspective. She was adamant that I was a troublemaker, using my speech impediment as an excuse to mock her. My classmates, who had been silent spectators until now, began to voice their support for me. They told Karen she was being unfair, that it was clear I wasn't mocking anyone. But Karen was like a wall, unmovable and indifferent to their pleas. The turning point came during a school assembly. Karen, in her usual flair for the dramatic, decided to use me as an example of what she called disrespectful behavior. She called me up on stage in front of the entire school, ready to make her point. But as I stood there, with hundreds of eyes on me, something inside me changed. I was tired of being misunderstood, tired of being punished for something beyond my control. I turned to the microphone, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm not mocking anyone. I have a speech impediment. And you, Mrs. Karen, are a bully, I said, my words echoing through the hall. The reaction was immediate. The assembly hall erupted in applause, students and teachers alike. Karen's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. She tried to regain control of the situation, but it was too late. Her authority had been challenged, and her unfair treatment exposed. From that day, Karen's attitude towards me changed, but not out of understanding or empathy. She was more cautious, aware that her actions were being scrutinized. But the disdain in her eyes never faded, a constant reminder of her stubbornness. As I left high school, I carried with me more than just academic knowledge. I learned the importance of standing up for myself, of speaking out against injustice, even if my voice shakes. Karen remained the same, a testament to the fact that some people never change, no matter how much they should. In the end, I realized that the biggest victories aren't always about changing others, but about changing how we see ourselves. And sometimes, just being able to speak your truth, stutter and all, is the greatest victory of all. It's heartbreaking to see how someone's speech impediment can be misunderstood and lead to such unfair treatment. Kudos to this person for finding the strength to stand up against the bullying. Remember, everyone deserves to be heard and respected, regardless of their challenges. My wife abandoned me 2 months ago to find herself. Little did I know it was just the beginning of a twisted tale that would unravel our lives. Secrets, betrayal, and a shocking disappearance followed, leaving me to piece together the puzzle of our shattered marriage. Here's how it all went down. My wife Mary's family has a history of dementia, with memory issues typically appearing in their mid to late 50s. Her mother, grandmother, and several other relatives on her mother's side have all developed dementia. For the past 4 years, her mother lived with us until earlier this year, as her father is deceased. Our children are now independent and no longer living at home. Our eldest is in her final semester of college, while the younger one has enlisted. These past 4 years have been challenging for us, our children, our daughter temporarily moved back home during COVID, and our marriage. Living with someone with dementia is difficult. During the past year, we extensively discussed using the remaining college funds and our regular savings, as well as selling or renting our house, since we were ready to downsize, quitting our jobs and traveling for a year or until our money runs out. However, we had to wait for her mother to move into a care facility. I understand my wife's concerns about developing dementia, and I myself have been exhausted. Dealing with the experience of COVID, working remotely, a wife working remotely, college and high school students taking remote classes, and a mother-in-law with dementia has shown us how to manage in challenging situations. Space finally opened up and we were able to move her mom into a care facility. I finally thought I had a chance to breathe. When we moved Mary's mom out, Mary's mental health took a huge downward spiral. I went from caring for her mom to caring for her. She felt guilty about putting her mom in a home and had lots of anxiety about developing dementia. Our plan was to start our traveling in summer 2024. 2 months ago, I get home and she's left a note. My friends call it Exhibit A. Basically, she was going on our trip without me. She had quit her job, took most of the savings, and wasn't sure when she'd be back. Maybe a year, maybe sooner. She knew I'd understand. Her location is turned off and my calls go directly to voicemail. I texted the kids a picture of the note. We have our own checking accounts for direct deposits of our paychecks, but we transfer most into a joint account to pay the household bills and savings. We both had access to the main savings account. We have joint credit cards we used for household expenses. The 2 cars and the mortgage are joint. We both also have our own small savings accounts, our own retirement accounts, equally funded, and our own credit cards for gifts and fun things. I closed all joint cards and accounts. I waited a month to see if she'd come back, hopefully before she spent our savings. After receiving only 1 text the first month, I went to a lawyer. She basically said there was very little to do right now, other than changing the beneficiaries of my retirement accounts and life insurance. Yay, my wife gets nothing else if I die alone while she's having our adventures. It was only a month, and there was no way to serve her papers. My lawyer advised me to keep paying the mortgage and the cars. The cost of trying to get a judge to approve the sale of joint assets was more than making payments. I didn't want to ruin my credit by letting one of our cars get repossessed, but I can't sell it because she's on the title. I get random texts, and she sporadically posts on Instagram. Of course, she has comments turned off. I want to block her so bad, but my lawyer advised me that it's better to maintain a communication channel that's not through our kids. Her last post was from Hawaii. She put in the comments how great a husband I was for letting her take this trip. I'm barely making it paying 2 cars, a mortgage, household bills, insurance, hoping there are no emergencies because I have no savings. And she's enjoying our trip. Jerk. I'm so mad at her. I helped take care of her mom for 4 years, and her when she fell apart after her mom moved into a memory care home, and she returns the favor by abandoning me. I'll never get to take this trip and have to put off retirement. My only solace is the kids are mad at her, but they'll probably forgive her eventually. Double F her. I'm no fool. She's hooking up with guys. She looks good. She'll have zero problem getting men. I texted her and asked if she was sleeping around. A week later, she responded that she wasn't. Sure. So, I'm drinking alone on a Friday night, and she's somewhere, probably on a beach, enjoying life. Triple F her. My lawyer has given me a bunch of advice and options. It was just way more than I could possibly include in this post. I could definitely push the issue harder, and I might need to at some point, but all that work is very expensive. Finding her, serving her, getting a judge to sign off, that's not cheap. I'm following up soon, and I plan on talking about the savings and my finances. Until I paid all the bills and realized how little was left, it didn't hit me that I had to worry about money. After a few weeks, I'm feeling much more positive now that the financial situation has become a little more manageable. Basically, I'm running up debt that will get paid off when I sell the house. Even with lawyer fees, I have 8 more months before I have to worry about money, assuming there are no emergencies. My friend's wife gave me some good advice. Don't go from being a hero to a villain in your kids' eyes. How I talk about and treat my wife will determine my future relationship with my kids. I don't give a damn about my wife, but I don't want to make her a sympathetic figure or drive them away from both of us. I followed up with the lawyer. Basically, she said we're going to have her pay back the savings she took through a reduction in her share of the assets. Any division of assets will include the savings she took. She'll also have to repay the money I spent maintaining the household while she was gone. There is plenty of equity in her share of the house and her retirement plans to cover that. She said that our finances are so intertwined after nearly 25 years of marriage, my wife is going to get some share of the assets. Best case is she agrees to the terms of the divorce and it's relatively cheap and quick. Otherwise it gets complicated and expensive. She gave me a lot of options and how much I can expect to spend, so I decided to just mostly wait. I got a couple of credit cards with promotional rates for purchases and transfers that gives me breathing room and I can conserve cash. I'll just pay them off when I sell the house. Now that my financial situation is less stressful, I'm actually enjoying her being gone. I'm free to do whatever I want, whenever. I don't have to cook or clean or take care of anyone. The house is quiet for the first time I can remember. I loved my wife, but her mental health weighed down our marriage. On balance, it was worth it until now. The first month or so, I expected her to be there whenever I'd get home. When someone was at the door, or if I heard noises, I'd think it was her. I'd check the doorbell camera obsessively. I'm not looking forward to her returning. It has to happen, but when she comes back, I'll have to deal with her. The divorce, getting the house ready to sell, dividing all our stuff, finding a new place to live. I'm hoping she'll stay away until after New Year's, but my daughter said she thinks her mom will be home for Christmas, either to stay or visit. My lawyer will have papers ready to serve her. Hopefully she'll just agree to the terms and continue her travels. People had some great advice. Renting or selling the house. Not really feasible right now since I'd have to fix some stuff and get it ready to sell. Rent. Since I need a place to live, the amount I net each month. Rent, mortgage, rent on a new apartment, storage unit =, not worth it. My kids' rooms are still full of their stuff and I don't want to spend the time and effort to clear them out and put them in storage. Getting a home equity line of credit, HELOC. This was great advice. I didn't realize I didn't need both people to get a loan. If I need more money, I can go this way. In the short term, the promotional rates on the credit cards were cheaper and easier than getting a HELOC. Serving my wife divorce papers or getting a divorce in absentia. This is something I might need to do eventually, but the cost in lawyer fees goes up exponentially in cases like this. I'm comfortable just waiting for now. Look at the phone bill to see where she's at and possibly going. I did look at her usage and did notice that she doesn't post on social media until after she leaves a place. Like when she posted about Hawaii, she made a call that day that originated in Los Angeles. She posted about a cruise and I figured out the dates, trying to serve her at the port possibly, but it ended a couple of days before she posted. She tried adding international calling to her line, but I blocked it, so she removed her phone from our account. You know, it's funny how life can take such unexpected turns. One moment you're going through the ups and downs of a complicated marriage, dealing with the challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia, and then, out of the blue, your wife decides to abandon you and embark on a solo adventure, leaving you to pick up the pieces. It's a strange mix of emotions, really. On one hand, there's anger and betrayal, the feeling of being left behind and having to navigate the aftermath of a broken relationship. But on the other hand, there's a sense of newfound freedom, a chance to rediscover yourself and enjoy the quiet moments that were once drowned out by chaos. I never thought a simple dislike for mustard would spiral into a terrifying ordeal. As I tried to assert my preference, my husband's obsession turned into control and abuse. From threatening divorce to reckless driving, I now find myself seeking safety and answers. Here's how it all went down. We have been married for 2 years, and we dated for 5 years prior to that. We are both 34 years old, and I am a woman while he is a man. I want to clarify that my preference for not liking mustard is not about being a picky eater. I am actually quite adventurous when it comes to trying new foods, and I make an effort to try dishes with unusual or uncommon ingredients whenever I travel. However, mustard, the condiment, is one of the few foods that I simply do not enjoy. I have tried various types, including yellow, stone ground, honey, artisan, brown, and spicy mustard, but none of them appeal to my taste buds. The strong and overpowering flavor of mustard is unpleasant to me. Unfortunately, my husband doesn't seem to understand or accept this. He loves mustard, especially honey mustard, and he frequently includes it in his sandwiches and uses it as a dip for fries. He often tries to convince me to give it another chance, claiming that I might like it this time. As an adult, I know my own preferences, and I genuinely do not like mustard. Whenever I decline his offer to try it, it often leads to a small argument where he accuses me of being picky. Recently, during a road trip back home from a weekend getaway, we stopped at a gas station for a quick bite. My husband ordered a hot dog slathered in mustard, while I chose to have mine plain. I'm not particularly fond of hot dogs, but I can still eat them. While we were waiting in line, he asked me what I had on my hot dog, and I told him I had nothing on it. Surprisingly, this made him furious. He took my hot dog from me and angrily went over to the condiment station to put mustard on it, telling me to grow up and stop being picky. Feeling upset and no longer having an appetite, I decided to leave and sat in the car. I didn't even want the hot dog anymore. The situation escalated when he returned, yelling at me for further embarrassing him. For the first time ever, he mentioned the word divorce. Out of fear, I secretly recorded his outburst because I genuinely feared for my safety. He was driving recklessly, swerving and speeding. As a result, I am currently staying in a hotel. He ignored me all day at work, and when he realized I wasn't coming home, he started bombarding me with texts and voicemails. He even sent me a screenshot of a Google search for local divorce lawyers. I haven't eaten anything all day, and I have been sobbing in this hotel room. I never wanted this to end in divorce, and I wish I had just eaten the mustard to avoid this situation. I am reaching out to anyone for an explanation. Am I in danger? Why would he react this way to a simple food preference? I feel completely broken right now. In response to some questions I saw regarding saying no to sex, he respected my decision if I declined to have sex, but he would repeatedly ask for oral sex. Initially, I gave in to his requests, but over time, I started dreading it. He tried buying things to make it more enjoyable or easier for me. I used to enjoy giving oral sex, but I no longer feel comfortable doing it for him. However, he continues to ask for it persistently. I started responding by saying, "I said no. Are you going to force me?" His reaction would then be a mix of discomfort and offense, as if I implied he would rape or assault me. As for my support system, unfortunately, I don't have one. I've always had a small circle of friends, and I lost touch with most of my casual college friends. The friends I do have are friends we share in common. It makes me feel like a loser, but I don't have friends of my own. Both of my parents have passed away, and I have no siblings. I'm financially capable of living on my own and covering the costs of a divorce. However, I never wanted things to come to this. The mustard issue was always just a minor annoyance to me. I never considered it a deal breaker, but evidently it is for him. We do not have any children, and we have no shared assets or financial investments except for one joint account that we contribute to equally for paying bills. We were actually considering buying a house. For now, I am safe. I am at work and staying in the hotel until further notice. He has continued to send texts. One message mentioned that he loves me and doesn't want to lose me, but he feels that I have left him with no other option by refusing to communicate or come home. I haven't responded yet because I don't know what to say. Last night I forced myself to eat my favorite takeout, but it tasted like cardboard. I stayed up late compiling a list of every concerning behavior he has exhibited. I suppose the mustard incident is just the tip of the iceberg. I must admit that while I was at work, thoughts of the lonely room waiting for me after 5 o'clock made me consider just going home. However, I knew what awaited me there. I am too exhausted to muster up the kind of apology he would be expecting in order for things to go back to normal. Honestly, I fear that our normal is detrimental to me. I also don't want to apologize. I don't believe I did anything wrong, and all of you helped validate that. I always felt like I was the one disrupting the peace. He would get so upset over things that required little to no effort for me to do, or go along with because I loved him. Somewhere along the way, I think I lost myself. I never liked mustard. I never liked golf, camping, or red wine. But he loves all of these and wanted me to love them too. He said he was introducing me to his hobbies so we would have shared interests as a couple. However, I have realized that out of all the things I used to enjoy, he has either refused to try them or ignored my interests. Our shared interests are solely his. God, how can I regain my sense of self? My world shattered just 2 days ago, and now I find myself drunk at a hotel bar, switching between Reddit and researching divorce lawyers. I still don't want to get a divorce. It feels so permanent. I never imagined myself as a divorcee. I used to believe that every choice I made was deliberate, and it used to be a source of pride for me. But he is making this choice for me, and it hurts. First of all, I took this week off at the encouragement of my employer. I plan to spend it finding a therapist that specializes in domestic abuse and sexual assault, which I've come to realize I am a victim of. I feel completely numb. I'm also looking into a divorce lawyer. Secondly, he found the hotel where I was staying. I guess he followed me from work. He was waiting in the lobby. God, my heart skipped a beat, and I realized that I did not miss him at all. I was afraid of making a scene. I need to unlearn that. So I sat with him in the lounge area and talked. I'll summarize it. I pointed out the security camera and said if he tried to hurt me, there would be footage, and I would press charges without a second thought. He was completely shocked and said he'd never hurt me. I reminded him how I feared for my life in the car. He ignored me. He asked why I wasn't coming home. I was completely blank-faced when I told him, "Because you're divorcing me." He said he didn't mean it and was just upset. I said, "When normal people are upset, they express it in a healthy way. You threatened the end of our marriage. I'm taking you seriously." He got pissed and asked if I was saying he wasn't normal. Honestly, I just wanted the conversation to be done. So I told him if that's really all he heard, then there was no point in talking anymore. I told him I was looking for a lawyer, and he should probably do the same if he hasn't found one. He lashed out and said, "All this over one mistake?" And I just stared at him. As I made to stand up, he grabbed my wrist hard and I pointed at the camera again. This just made him angrier. He never could handle slights to his ego. One mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern of abuse over years. It was threatening me, intimidating me. I told him if he tried to contact me again beyond sending me his lawyer's details, I'd be calling the police. He let me go. I want to say I was badass and celebrated in my room. I collapsed onto my bed and began sobbing. I was just so sick and angry and sad. He truly doesn't care about me. I've been crying on and off while calling local therapists. God, why is it so hard to find one? The number of therapists that advertise but turn out to not be accepting new patients is unacceptable. I've looked into victims of domestic violence/adult content support groups as well. In the span of less than a month, my life is completely changed. And he isn't remorseful at all. He just thinks it's all my fault. I have a divorce lawyer. That's all I'm comfortable with revealing at the moment. I will also mention that I have moved locations. I am safe and secure. My work has allowed me to go fully remote. My soon-to-be ex does not have my location, nor are there any trackers on my phone. I am in contact with people and organizations who are helping me. Earlier this week, the calls and texts really increased. I was advised to leave him unblocked and simply muted so his messages would come through. I read a few since I was curious. He wanted me at Thanksgiving dinner with his family. He begged me to stop being this way, and what was he supposed to tell his family? Well, Thursday came and went. I had bought a couple of ready meals the night before, so that was my feast. I do want to take a break here to talk about my mom. Since it was only 3 of us every holiday, except the rare times friends would come over, my mom wouldn't make a turkey. She would buy a rotisserie chicken and dress it up with stuffing, etc. She would make dishes we loved rather than traditional Thanksgiving dishes. My favorite side dish of all time was French fries. My dad loved grilled asparagus with cheese, so we would have a rotisserie chicken with French fries, asparagus, and some garlic toast. My mom's favorite. The first time I had real traditional Thanksgiving food at a friend's house, I apparently told my mom loudly I didn't like it, and asked where the fries were. Haha. So this year, instead of my soon-to-be ex-husband's family's Thanksgiving food, I bought asparagus, fries, garlic toast, and a couple of slices of rotisserie chicken. It wasn't half as good as my mother's meal. But when I say I cried eating it, it felt like they were with me that night. I guess my absence at the dinner forced my soon-to-be ex to tell his family that I was separated from him. So Friday morning, I got a phone call from an unfamiliar number. I answered it, thinking maybe it was my lawyer's home phone or another person I was in contact with. It was my mother-in-law. She begged me not to hang up on her, so I stayed on the line. She went on about how I was her daughter. She loved me. Her son loved me. And how could I leave him over something so minor? He only told his mom about the mustard, and even then it was a watered-down version that made me look like a neurotic control freak who needed everything my way. According to my mother-in-law, he just made a side cup of it for me and asked me to just try it in the car, and I started screaming I'd divorce him. She then started probing about which lawyer I was seeing and what I had told them. She also reminded me that lying in court was a crime. My lawyer had warned me to not reveal anything we had discussed to his family. It took all my willpower not to say anything. Instead, I hung up and muted her number too. She hasn't texted or tried to call again. Trust me, I would have loved to send the recording of her son screaming saying he ought to smack me upside the head, calling me a stubborn jerk, that he would divorce me, and that he would run the car off the road if I didn't start acting right. I wanted to scream into the phone that her precious son started this mess and I was simply doing what he wanted. I have come to realize you don't treat someone you love like the way he has acted. Normal people don't want to have sex with someone who has already said no. Normal people don't keep pushing and obsessing over food preferences. There is something seriously wrong with that man. He texted me last night, Friday, calling me a jerk for making his mother cry. He also said he would come find me and it would take more than a locked door to keep him from getting me and taking me home. I forwarded those to the right people. I have recently moved to a new location, although I won't disclose where. Fortunately, my job allows me to work remotely on a permanent basis. While I cannot provide specific details about my divorce or ongoing legal matters, I can mention that I was granted a protective order as a result of an incident that occurred in December. This incident led to my hospitalization. This experience made me realize that I needed to leave that situation behind. I took several precautions, such as trading my car, having my phone checked for tracking apps or devices, and changing my phone number. As a result, he is unable to contact me directly or through others. I have now relocated several hours and state lines away from him and his family. I moved with minimal belongings, just 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. I am excited to furnish and decorate my new home according to my own preferences. In addition to therapy, I attend a survivor support group on a weekly basis. With these resources, I am confident that I will be okay. Finally, I feel like I can breathe freely. I am currently still attending therapy, which includes individual counseling and bi-weekly group meetups for victims of domestic violence. I want to clarify that I am absolutely not dating. I came across some comments expressing hope that I find a fairy tale man, but that's the last thing I want or need right now. My focus is on achieving independence and self-love before considering a new partner. It may take years before I feel ready, and that's perfectly okay. I've discovered a newfound love for cooking and exploring different cuisines. It's amazing how I didn't realize how limited my ex's tastes were until I broke free from that relationship. Just slathering mustard on a $2 hot dog doesn't mean you have superior taste buds. Sorry, I couldn't resist taking a playful jab. Nothing particularly new or dramatic has happened, and that's exactly how I prefer it. What truly matters is that I'm alive and happy. I didn't realize how much I had neglected myself until I was given the space to do so. It's fascinating how something as seemingly trivial as liking or disliking mustard can have such significant consequences. Let's all embrace our individual preferences and enjoy meals that truly suit our own palates. I never expected my estranged half-sister, the product of my mother's affair, to show up on my doorstep after 17 years of no contact. But when she arrived, desperate and claiming to be kicked out, I refused to let her into my life. Little did I know, this decision would set off a chain of events that would leave me questioning my safety and sanity. Here's how it all went down. My half-sister and I have no real relationship. My dad divorced our mother when I was 5 and half-sister was still 4, but going on 5. Half-sister was the product of my mother's affair and born exactly 9 months after me. My dad stayed with my mother up until I, at 5, told him about the man my mother kept bringing over when he wasn't home. That would be half-sister's father. My dad gave my mother the house in exchange for removing his name from half-sister's birth certificate. He paid her child support for me up until I was 8, and my mother abandoned me during her week because her affair partner didn't want to take a child that wasn't his to visit his family for the holidays anymore, and half-sister pretty much hated me because her grandfather supposedly liked me better. Dad tried to be civil and make sure I had a relationship with half-sister after that, but I didn't want anything to do with her either, so I never spent time with her after that. Half-sister herself would say she didn't have a sister, so I never claimed her. The day I made my account, half-sister called me. I don't know how she got my number, but she was sobbing about our mom kicking her out of the house and not wanting anything to do with her now that she's married to, random name, don't know who he is. I just hung up on her to be honest, and she started texting me that she really needs her sister's help. She says she has nowhere else to go. Her father cut contact a while ago, and no one is willing to come up to get her. She lives 6 hours away from where I live, which I guess is easy to figure. I live next door to my dad. I'm a bit torn because when she called again, I told her we're not actually sisters, and I'm not coming to get her, nor am I giving her a place to stay until she's back on her feet. Then I hung up again. I blocked her number, but she's been calling from other numbers, and now I have people from my mother's family telling me I'm an awful sister, and I should be more understanding because I was once the child that got kicked out. I just need some insight because I want to know if I'm in the wrong or if I should have gone about it differently. 4 days ago, I made my account and contemplated asking if I was a jerk for something. My half-sister, had called me crying, saying, our mother kicked her out and she really needs her sister. I hung up the first time, and when she kept calling and texting, I told her we're not actually sisters, and I wasn't driving 6 hours to pick her up nor letting her stay with me. I've been getting non-stop texts and calls from my biological mother's family since then. My maternal grandmother, the only person I stayed in any contact with, pretty much begged me to be a good sister and let my half-sister stay with me. She told my half-sister I have my own house, gave her my number, etc. I've blocked my grandmother, and everyone's saying that I should be understanding because we've both been abandoned by our mother. It isn't the same. I told my grandmother this, but no one seems willing to acknowledge that. For context, my half-sister and I are exactly 9 months apart in age. She's the product of an affair, and my dad stayed with my biological mother, until I was 5 and told him she kept bringing a man around when he wasn't home, her affair partner, AP, and my half-sister's biological dad. Dad divorced my biological mother and gave her the house in exchange for removing his name from my half-sister's birth certificate. My biological mother lost custody of me when I was 8 after abandoning me because her affair partner didn't want to bring a child that wasn't his to family gatherings. Dad tried to keep it civil so I could have a relationship with my half-sister, but she was a mini affair partner and never viewed me as a sister. I didn't like being around her, so my dad never forced me to. My biological mother, affair partner, and my half-sister moved not long after this. My biological mother had been in childcare and lost her job because no one wants to hire you to watch their kids when you abandon yours in the middle of the night. I haven't seen my half-sister in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like until I came home today. She was sitting on my porch with a suitcase and a car, I think my grandmother's, pulled off as soon as I parked. I didn't get out of the car. I was too angry to even move, and I'm still angry right now. She kept saying she needs me and started crying, telling me that our mom was awful, Her dad cut contact, and my biological mother's current husband doesn't want her in his house. I live next door to my dad, so when my half-sister started knocking on my car window after I just stared at her, I called him and told him what was going on and asked what I should do. Dad told me to stay in my car and call the cops, say I had a trespasser, which I did. I didn't get out until the cops came, and when they did, my half-sister told them I agreed to let her stay, and now I'm leaving her homeless. I just showed them the texts, specifically the only text I gave in response to everyone demanding I let her stay. No to you have the space, no to she's your sister, no to can she please stay with you. Nothing but refusals before I blocked people. When my half-sister kept saying we're sisters, I told the cops I haven't seen this woman in 17 years. I don't know her. I didn't even know what she looked like. We're not family beyond sharing an egg donor. I went as far as unblocking my grandmother and calling her. I didn't even get to speak. She yelled, "Look, OP, I love you, but you need to get over this. She's family and she needs you, and I've told your father you'd go to hell if he raised you to be so damn selfish, and you definitely will because she's going through the same thing you went through." She hung up right after, and I told the cops they can book my half-sister or drop her at a shelter. I don't care. I just want her off my property. They took her, and now I'm sitting here on my dad's couch wondering what the heck just happened. He doesn't want me staying alone right now in case they show back up. I'm so angry right now, I don't get it. 17 darn years of no contact. I only speak to my grandmother on holidays. I don't know most of the aunts and uncles and cousins that blew up my phone, but because my biological mother pushed me out, I have to do what they tell me to. I'm 25 years old. I've only had my dad and my paternal family for years. My biological mother and her family haven't done anything for me. None of them even know when my dang birthday is because even my grandmother texts me on the wrong day, not even a phone call. If my half-sister needs help so badly, one of you should help her. I don't know her. I don't know any of you either. I'm not letting an entire stranger into my house. And 6 hours is too far to visit when I had surgery, but not too far to try and force me to do something. I checked the camera footage last night this morning. Half-sister, HS, and biological mother's mother had been looking under mats, rocks, in potted plants, the mailbox, and checking the doors. Probably were looking for a spare. I don't keep one on my property, and my dad, grandma, and grandpa have keys they keep with theirs. My uncle did an overhaul of mine and dad's cameras. We now have ones that send notifications to our phones when motion is detected. Also got Ring doorbells for the front and back doors. There are other features, and all the cameras are better hidden as well. I went to the police department while he was doing this and brought my grandpa with me. HS was booked for trespassing but not held very long since biological mother's mother picked her up from the station. They stuck to the lie of me offering half-sister a place to stay and gave statements. Not sure how that's going to go, but I'm taking steps to protect myself, my property, and my dad and his property. Half-sister doesn't have a record beyond this, so this was her first offense. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. It sounds awful, but I had hoped she would have at least one prior because commenters make it seem like that would make the outcome of a permanent restraining order, RO, and temporary order, TO, favorable. Biological mother's mother does have a record though, harassment, trespassing, and domestic violence. I shared this with the police as well. Either way, I was able to get a temporary restraining order today, so there's that. I gave the camera footage to the police alongside copies of the texts, printed out and on USB, gave a statement, and they called a judge to get the temporary restraining order, TRO, issued. I talked with them about other things like self-defense recommendations, overhauling my security system, getting a gun for protection, and so on. I was really anxious and just kept talking because it finally hit me that these people know where I live, and they're willing to make the 6 hours to harass me and get inside my home. The texts and voice messages haven't stopped. I unblocked and muted. There are direct and indirect threats. Biological mother's mother is adamant that since I have an entire house to myself, a stable job, and no children, I will be housing half-sister, or she'd give me the jerk-whopping my dad should've. Half-sister has only left one voice message about coming over later today, and that she's staying with me because that's what blood does. They help. When there was no response, she sent multiple texts telling me I need to be more understanding, that she's in a tough spot, and that she's moving in for at least a week until she's able to support herself. It's 7 days to gain tenancy here. Additional clarification for people asking about the age gap. I'm a February 1st baby. Half-sister is a November 29th baby. I say exactly 9 months because I'm not counting the weeks and days. Just felt that people knowing we're the same age was relevant and gave context to why I have no relationship with her. I don't know if she was premature. I never asked to be honest, and there are people saying they have similar gaps around them, so I have nothing to add. Multiple people also asked if I hate half-sister HS, and that I sound resentful for things she said as a child and for things her parents did. In my first post, I talked to someone in the comments and admitted that had this been a few years earlier, I may have helped HS without much thought. I know as children she was just parroting her parents. I don't fault her for that, nor do I blame her for biological mother, BM, abandoning me. But it's been 17 years. We've been legal adults for 7 of those years. She could have reached out at any point but didn't and said she had no sister. I also could have reached out at any point but also didn't. I just moved on with my life. I was in therapy since I was abandoned, and it took me years to move on from no one on that side actually wanting me. Now she's making herself a problem. BM's mother aside, HS was sitting on my porch with a suitcase ready to force herself into my home and life. She allowed herself to be driven 6 hours to my home, sat on my porch for half an hour, and then lied to police all after I said no multiple times. She never claimed me until she needed something, and now she's forcing herself into my life on the basis of being family. I don't hate her, that's too much energy, but I do resent her now alongside her grandmother and the rest of her family. I was ignored for years, and now I feel unsafe in my own home just because half-sister, HS, and those around her can't take no for an answer. This isn't about biological mother's BM affair. This is about HS and her family ruining my safe space, my home, with their crap. The past is a factor in that resentment now because, again, I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like, but suddenly we're sisters because she needs some place to stay. I definitely resent that. Also, I feel validated in my choices. Posting to Reddit, asking for and taking advice, listening to my dad. The attorney I spoke to pretty much said all the same things commenters have. Unblocking and muting to get evidence of harassment. Calling the cops and showing them the messages because it proves there was no implied invitation. This is apparently the biggest thing I had to worry about because even letting HS stay on my porch could have worked against me. Giving the cops the camera footage of HS and BM's mother looking for a spare key was also a good move. Even going about upgrading security, getting self-defense items, and asking the officers about self-defense recommendations, and my wish to get a gun for protection works in my favor. It shows that even though this was HS's first offense, I don't feel safe, and she's a major cause of that. And I don't. Affair partner, AP, cut contact with HS when she was 20. She covered BM's affair with Rando. AP stopped paying her tuition and cut her off financially. HS's work history is non-existent. She was kicked out by BM a month ago because she was sleeping with Rando and one of his sons. Said son turned 18 2 months ago. HS came home to hers and Rando's things on the curb and all the locks changed. Police weren't involved. The cousin doesn't know if BM told the boy's mother, but she did tell the entire family. Essentially said, protect your kids in marriage. HS claims she only slept with him on his birthday, but BM claims he was a minor when HS slept with him. The family is adamant about getting her somewhere safe to stay long-term because HS is pregnant. No one likes her but believes abandoning her is wrong due to her pregnancy. The cousin expresses doubt about the pregnancy. HS showed grandmother, GM, a positive pregnancy test, but no one else has been given any proof. HS has a history of lying. HS couch surfed with those that don't have kids. So far she's borrowed someone's car without permission, taken expensive items to pawn, taken money meant for interview clothes and travel, then blew it on expensive mom and baby outfits. When cops are involved, she lies and has gotten someone arrested by claiming sexual assault when they tried to have her removed from their property. The plot to get HS into my house was the idea of an uncle, one of GM's 3 sons. GM apparently brags as complains about me being young with no kids, a well-paid job, and a house I own. Essentially, this uncle said I had no responsibilities, disposable income, and plenty of room, because no one wants to outright abandon HS. This was the best plan. The cousin, don't give an inch, not even a ride to a shelter. Someone tried and she caused a scene, nearly got them arrested because she kept lying about the situation. Please read this. I read your 2 posts, stay safe. Texts and calls have all stopped. My entire neighborhood is on alert, and the family rotation continues. One of my friends stayed last night, and a different friend agreed to stay tonight. Today will be spent with my aunt, the one with the keychain and fisticuff bracelet, and grandmother. No one showed up at my house in the middle of the night. My aunt suggested making transcripts of all the saved voice messages, which I think is a pretty good addition to this to go along with the USB drive of them. So that'll be part of what I do today. We'll also be recording when I go to and from work or anywhere, to be honest. Also, multiple people on the door screws. That was among the first things done when I bought the house. And my windows were all changed on purchase as well. They're impact windows, so it'll take a lot of effort to break them. My uncle has always been big on home safety, so he did all of that with me. Even though I'm next door to my dad and fairly close to the rest of the family, he always says I'm still a woman alone in a house. You can never be too safe. Holiday vacations have officially been canceled and refunded. Always invest in travel insurance. A lot of stories shared with me have me on edge about leaving my home unattended. My neighbors offered to watch my house, but I'd feel more comfortable being present if something happens. So this year I'm going to be hosting Thanksgiving and potentially Christmas. My grandmother suggested this, and she's getting really into it, so today might also be shopping for decorations. By the way, can you believe all the drama that unfolded in this story? Like, who would have thought that a simple visit from a long-lost half-sister could turn into such a chaotic situation? Life can be so unpredictable sometimes. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.